Okay, hello, welcome back to our Bong Joon Ho series. Today we're going to be talking about the 2013-2014 film. I don't know, on different things it says different years, it's weird. Directed by Bong Joon Ho, of course. And this is Bong Joon Ho doing Spectacle. So what do you guys think of this, fellas? And then we can slowly talk about
I loved it. I had so much fun watching it.
Good.
This movie's sick, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this movie's just sick. Like, dude, I did not know Octavia Spencer was in it, and I love Octavia Spencer. One of my well-documented lifelong dreams is to make a buddy cop movie with me and Octavia Spencer. This is just an excellent movie all around. I had so much fun watching it.
I'm so happy to hear that. Oh my God.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. I think, yeah, to your point, Tyler, about the spectacle, Bong does action in all of his movies really well, whether it's like a fight scene or whether it's a super simple, well, I was going to spoil something from Parasite, so I'm not going to do that. But like any sort of moment of action, he really knows how to like film it. Particularly, there's a scene early on in this movie where they begin the revolution, where Chris Evans walks up to one of the guards and he takes the gun and puts it to his head. And then that whole sequence is just like, okay, this guy knows how to film action. The whole movie is just like a very fun, like you said, sort of on the nose allegory for capitalism and for everything in the world as it is, and has a very anarchist point of view, which I really appreciate and I really like, just because like you don't see a lot of blockbusters like that. Most blockbusters would be a little bit brighter and a little bit more hopeful. This movie is not, and I really dig that.
Do we want to do a full spoiler discussion like we have been with the other ones?
I think we should.
Yeah, so from here on out, it's going to be spoilers. One of the weirdest things that, this is kind of a big weird thing that I like. I just really like the villains in this movie.
Yeah.
They're super fucking crazy. Like Tilda Swinton gives her craziest performance ever. She has a fake teeth also. Ed Harris is in it. And he basically plays like Willy Wonka, like a form of like an older Willy Wonka.
Mm-hmm. The Willy Wonka of trains.
Yeah.
Of trains, basically, yeah. And I guess with this like weird thing I want to talk about, it's like everyone gives like a strange performance in this. That tunnel sequence, which is fantastic, and we'll talk about later, I'm sure. Just all the villains there are just like in black, and they have like weird like cut things like around their mouths.
Some are over their mouths or some are over their eyes.
Yeah. Does it matter? No. Why are they dressed like that? I don't care. It just looks cool.
Yeah, and I think it also just like with how weird the villains are and how unique everybody is, like in the tunnel sequence, everybody's dressed in black and they have cut out sock things. It just adds to the different levels of the train. It just feels like every time they open a door, they're in a completely different world, which is really good. And I think the set design of this movie also enhances that so dramatically. I don't know how much this movie was made for. It was probably made for less than we would expect, but it looks gorgeous. This looks better than some of the Star Wars stuff that we've been seeing recently.
No, totally.
Towards the end, when it's just Chris Evans and Song Kang-Ho, and they're doing their back and forth, and Chris Evans is telling the story about Jamie Bell's character when he was a baby, just the single on Chris Evans and the lighting around him. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's so incredibly well lit and well designed and well thought out. And each level just feels like what each level of the train does is it like keeps things from getting boring. Because every single time they open a door, there's something new to look at. And so the movie is, I don't know, 2 hours or something like that, 2:12. And it goes by so fast for that exact reason.
Yeah. And do you guys have guesses on the budget of this film?
I'll say 75 million.
Okay. Check.
58.4 million.
Cool. I think I would have said 65 originally, but it's actually 40 million.
Gee golly.
Wow.
Yeah. And with the big stars they have, like a good chunk of that's going to the stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like 39 million to Chris Evans.
Something that Bong Joon Ho, so as we like go along in this, like it's really interesting to see how he grows. This is literally his next movie after Mother, and I can't believe how much more of a movie it looks like. I mean, this is produced by like the Weinstein company. Yeah, I know. Ooh. and like it's just such a different film for him. And my favorite part about this film is that he still has the setups and punches that he has in every other one of his movies. I mean, that's what makes the action sequences so intense. It's like when there's darkness and he yells for that kid, and it's like you remember like the kid got like the matches like earlier in the movie, and it's like, oh shit, like oh, like he's gonna like bring the matches there, and then it's just so hyped where it's just like these guys are just running a torch to save them on the train. And like everything, you know, every action sequence has that setup and punch. Like the bullets are so good. We talked about that a little earlier, and it's just something he does really well in all his movies, and it's great.
Yeah, and you see that specifically with the Song Kang-Ho character, who is like the coolest character, and we'll talk about him specifically here shortly, but his character just like, he keeps like looking out windows and then it cuts away from him, or he like says something kind of vague and then it cuts away from him and you don't know exactly what's going on there. And then by the end, everything is revealed about what his intention is. The chronal, the snowflake, and looking outside at the plane. All of those little small setups also are paid off in such an exceptional way. And it almost feels like Bong has a quota that he has to hit for setups and payoffs. And I love him for that, because it's just like whenever there's an opportunity, he just throws something in there. Particularly with the fire, though, I do want to talk about that tunnel scene. When they open the door and Song Kang-Ho's daughter is like, don't open the door. He opens the door and then the gates open and you see the crowd of axe-wielding psychopaths, like straight out of a Mad Max movie. The music kicks in. That stuff is nightmare fuel. It is one of the scariest things I've seen in a movie in quite a while. It's dark. This movie is dark.
Yeah, especially when like they go through the tunnel and the lights are all out. You're like, okay, it's done for them now. There's no way that they're getting past this. There's these big, strong men with their big, strong arms and their big old axes here, and they're just gonna, slice and dice the way through.
Also on that sequence, I think this is a good time to start talking about Curtis as a protagonist. Chris Evans, I think, is like very serviceable in this movie, as in like I don't think Curtis as a character has huge moments to shine as an actor, except that like that one big monologue. But I would love to talk about that monologue because I think some stuff is lost in translation, and we can talk about that later. But he makes a decision in the tunnel to not go after Edgar and instead capture Tilda Swinton. And when I was like 12 watching this movie for the first time, which I wasn't, I was like 15, 16, 17, something like that. That was the moment I was like, oh shit, like I have like respect for this movie because like their protagonist made technically the wrong decision. They didn't save their friend. And I like when protagonists are a little like kind of selfish, kind of like wanting to be better but can't. And that's what Curtis is in this movie. And I think is not that likable, but I think he's like a leader, which is like kind of like the thing. And I don't even think characters matter in action films that much, but I just think it's interesting that it's also Chris Evans, who's such a big actor in America.
Yeah, I think, well, to the Edgar point, I think it was technically the right decision, but emotionally the wrong decision. Reminds me of The Last Jedi line that Rose Tico has about like not killing the people you hate, but saving the ones you love. In that moment, he chooses to kill the ones he hates.
But he was doing it for the cause.
He was doing it for the cause, and it's the thing that's going to get them further up the train. So like ultimately, revolution is messy, but now is the time to stand. And so shout out to Daveed Diggs, who's also in Snowpiercer, the TV series. But with Curtis, so this is the thing that holds me back personally from really, really loving this movie. I really, really like it, but I just don't totally buy Chris Evans in this role.
That's very fair.
He is
very fair.
He's a buff movie star. Even though he's wearing a coat, you can tell he's got muscles under there.
Yeah. Even though he has a beard.
Yeah, he's got a beard.
His jawline's still trimmed as shit.
Yeah, for sure. They buzz cut his hair to make him look a little less sexy, but it doesn't work. He's still sexy. You cast Chris Evans because he is so likable and he does have that movie star charm, and it kind of shines through what is sort of a subtle character. There are moments that he as Chris Evans can just be like charismatic and show off that bravado that we've come to love from the Marvel movies. And that comes through more so than like the character on the page might have. But also for that same reason, it just, I don't totally buy him being this like non-leader loser that's been on this train for 17, now 18 years. I feel like this guy should be emaciated. He should be sickly looking.
Like everyone else in the,
exactly, yeah.
the tail of the train. Everyone else who's like missing limbs and teeth and like, yeah. And he's just like perfect still.
This is one of those movies that like, I'm not suggesting that this is what should have happened, but like if Christian Bale was the lead, he would have lost a ton of weight for, which I'm not advocating for, but it's just like, you know, it would be preferable to see a person that is not so handsome. You can't get over the fact that this is Captain America, you know, not because he's a bad actor or because he gives a bad performance or because it's similar to Captain America. None of that's true. It's just because he as an actor, and the reason he was cast as Captain America is because he is a leader. And he keeps saying in this movie, I'm not a leader. And I just don't buy it, like at any point. With that being said, though, I still do think he's really good in the movie. I just don't, there's a sort of cognitive dissonance there that just is in the back of my mind. But despite all that, he still gives probably one of his better performances in his career. And I do think he's a terrific actor. So I was happy to see him in something that wasn't a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that whole monologue towards the end where he talks about how he like used to eat babies and stuff, completely out of nowhere, but like a very good performance in that monologue.
Yeah, and kind of on that monologue, I kind of wanted to talk about it. It is a little broad at some points. Like at the end, he's like, Gilliam was the man. And Jamie and Edgar was the baby, and I was the man with the knife. It's like that. I feel like Bong Joon Ho definitely like wrote that because like it's just lost in translation. Like if it was like in a Korean film and like you just read that, you'd be like, oh my god, that's like powerful.
Yeah.
But because it's like translated to English, it's like kind of like weird.
Yeah.
But like I still think it's like a really good monologue and a good performance. And then Song Kang-Ho like gives like a fucking great monologue like right back about like what he's actually been doing this whole time. And this brings me to my question, and we'll talk about Song Kang-Ho now.
Here we go.
But what if Song Kang-Ho was the main character of this film?
What if they switched? What if Chris Evans was like the Han Solo?
Yeah, when they switched, it would be great.
And Song Kang-Ho is the main character. I was thinking the exact same thing last night when I was watching this.
But I'm like 100% sure the producers were like, there's no way we can give Song Kang-Ho the lead role in this. And it's like, that sucks.
Yeah,
you know?
No, for sure.
Because it would have to all be in Korean pretty much. Like he speaks English, but like they wouldn't allow him to have like an accent or anything. They would want him to have like a full thing. But I think Song Kang-Ho would be so good in the lead part of this film because he's just the best, and he can play a loser. We've seen it before in The Host.
Totally. I think you buy him as like somebody that's not a leader. You buy him as somebody that lives in the back of a train with the other 99%.
Someone who sits in a shed and eats noodles.
Exactly. Somebody that falls asleep.
Yes.
Somebody
that falls asleep all the time.
Somebody that smells, like in Parasite.
Also, since his daughter's a little older in this one, do you think that this is the same character from The Host?
I think so. I think it's an expanded universe.
I would like to think that.
I want to come back to the Weinstein Company portion of this because it is important because of how they tried to edit the movie. And Bong Joon Ho was just like, nah, not happening. And how the casting is informed by that also. But just more on Song Kang-Ho specifically. Can we talk about him? Can we talk about him for a minute?
No, of course.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, of course.
We can always talk about him.
Not sure if you know this, but my favorite actor on the planet, Song Kang-Ho. Having watched The Host and having watched Parasite and having watched Snowpiercer all like in a pretty close window, I just am still stunned with how different they all are. This movie particularly, though, because he is playing like he's like your Han Solo. For him to completely flip the idea of what he is as an actor in this movie is just so impressive. And it never feels like he's forcing it. So I think it's just a really impressive range that he displays in this film.
Yeah, I mean, he's just the best. Like, he's so good at everything. That's all I gotta say. He's just hella good.
And again, it it is like a cool character, but it's a cool character that is kind of like fried, you think is fried throughout the movie, but in reality, he's like the smartest person in the room. And I think you can definitely see that when he kills Big. I think he's credited on IMDb as Big Monster-esque man who keeps coming back to life.
Yeah, Michael Myers.
He looks like he's in a John Wick movie.
Yes.
You know, also something that's really endearing about him at the end of this film, like when he kind of there's a couple curtain pulls, and a curtain pull is that Song Kang-Ho has been like scheming something this whole time and trying to get off the train because everyone's trying to get to the front of the train, but like Song Kang-Ho's trying to get off the train, which like makes the most sense.
Where we
like,
zig, they zag, you know? I love it.
Yeah. Exactly. And he does end up having like a really sweet relationship with his daughter, but at first you're like, oh, he is just giving her drugs, and that's their whole relationship.
But he's building a bomb.
At the very end, it's just like I didn't pick this up the first time I watched it because like I was just so enthralled with the film as a whole, but like at the end when the Snowpiercer is about to blow up. And there's that edit that fucking I know a Weinstein producer put in it. Chris Evans just cut off his arm, which is very symbolic of like his character arc, blah blah blah. And he's running to the little kid and Song Kang-Ho's daughter, and then Song Kang-Ho's doing the same. And it's just a hug. It's like a nice little hug at the end. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a sweet ending to like Curtis and Song Kang-Ho's character. Like that's kind of nice. And then it cuts to Ed Harris, and he's like, nice. Yeah, something like that. And then the whole train blows up. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that had to have been a Weinstein edit in there where it's like, we have to have a character who like says like shit or like nice, or it's like that Dave Bautista scene from Spectre or whatever. Yeah, where
he says shit and then gets
shit and then gets pulled out the train. I mean, yeah, I feel like there's a few things in this movie that I go, there's no way Bong Joon Ho wanted that in the film, but he was like forced to put it in. Because there's actually an interview with John Hurt talking about Harvey Weinstein and just like the company in general. And it was like for the premiere of this film. And it's like, they've been giving, I can't do a John Hurt impression.
That's good. He sounds like an old person, you know?
He sounds like an old British person, and he sounds like he was close to dying all the time before he eventually did die. Tragically. Well, no, he was old and like he was in a lot of good movies and he lived a fine life. But John Hurt was basically talking about how like he wanted to just tell Weinstein, like, just let him do his own movies. Like he knows how to make a movie. He's like, have you seen Memories of Murder? Because like it's one of the best films ever, or like Mother. And it's nice to know that like on set, like an actor to the caliber of John Hurt is like, just trust Bong, just trust Bong Joon Ho because he knows how to make a movie.
And I think, just really quickly on that, there's behind the scenes stories from the host of Bong Joon Ho asking Scott Wilson to be in his movie. And when he asked him, he sent him a DVD of Memories of Murder just because he knew that Scott Wilson would not know who he was. And so he needed to like prove that he was a director of quality and like a director that has made movies. And this is just to get Scott Wilson for like a bit part. Flash forward to Snowpiercer, where John Hurt, one of the most legendary and renowned actors in the world, is just like, this guy knows what he's doing. I'm going to stand up to Harvey Weinstein about it. Like, that's pretty cool. That's the trajectory of Bong becoming like a legend, and a well-respected legend. I guess we could continue to talk about the Weinstein thing real quick, just because the Weinstein Company very famously was trying to cut this movie up and cut it to pieces because they just did not think that American audiences were going to dig it. I think they wanted to lighten it up. I think that they wanted to cut the runtime down. They wanted to make it less violent. They probably wanted to make it PG-13. And so they did this a lot with a lot of movies. They tried to cut up movies all the time. And famously, the Weinstein Company was good at one thing particularly, and that was like Oscar award season buzz. They got a lot of movies to win Oscars. Everybody knew that. Like, everybody knew that if you partnered up with the Weinstein Company, you would be likely to be nominated or win an Oscar. And so when Bong Joon Ho stands up to Harvey and company, and says, no, you're not going to cut my film. What he is doing is almost career suicide at that point, because he knows that this movie is not going to get the kind of distribution that it deserves now. It is not going to get the kind of awards buzz that it deserves now. Nothing that could have been for this movie will now happen because Bong is standing up to Harvey. And so I commend Bong Joon Ho for sticking with his vision. I'm sure there are some edits that he is not proud of that are in the movie that he had to just go along with. But for the most part, I think he maintained his vision, which is remarkably impressive and should be applauded. And it should also be noted that this movie, if this movie came out now, I think that it would be sweeping technical Oscar awards, like set design, costume design, hair and makeup, all of those awards, it would be nominated for an Oscar, and probably win an Oscar. But because of the back and forth with the Weinstein Company, that was not possible. So that's all that I wanted to say about the Weinstein Company. Terrible people.
Totally.
Rot.
Terrible people. Bong won in the end.
I just want to talk about this movie as an action movie compared to other action movies. Number one, most action movies that come out do not have a political message of any kind. This movie has a very, very political message. The system is rotten. Destroy the system. You're not going to see a lot of mainstream movies that are that upfront with a political message. So in that regard, very different from other action movies. Number two, it has a huge Korean cinema influence. There are some things in this movie that are just like so quintessentially Korean. I think of like the one shot. I mean, it's a number of like stylistic choices that I'm referring to, where like that one dude who like is just an acrobat that's in the team. Like he just runs the barrels, grabs a pipe, and then like chokes out the big heavy dude with the giant thing, the giant like
Oh my god, the ginormous police officer.
Yeah. Oh, that guy. Yeah, and so he just chokes him out, stabs him, cuts him up, and then the same thing goes for like the nightmare scene in the tunnel, where it's just like it feels like a scene from The Raid. You know, it's just like it's violent and gory. So that's number two, and then number three, it is bleak and violent. And I personally, the first time I watched this, I watched it with my parents, and maybe it was just because I was watching it with my parents, but like when people were getting gutted, I like really kind of cringed. I was kind of like, oh, this is like actually violent. Like not just like violent like in a regular action movie, but like truly violent. You actually feel people's like last breaths. You feel blood pouring onto the ground. And I think a lot of that has to do with the beautiful cinematography and the beautiful set design and beautiful makeup and all the squibs and stuff are incredible. But so there's a number of things in this movie that set it apart from other action movies. It's a breath of fresh air, you know? If more action movies were like this, I don't think that I would be complaining as much about action movies.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because a lot of action movies seem like they just have like violence for the sake of violence in them, because like they gotta blow some shit up or whatever, but they don't think about like the ramifications of blowing up the entire like city like they do in every single action movie. But like in this one, everything feels like very purposeful and is like to prove a point throughout it. And I just think like also you mentioned the like political message to it. Like there's actually like thematic depth to this movie, and a lot of action movies are like very surface level, which like, you know, is okay. Sometimes like you just want to watch like a bang bing boom blow stuff up, but like this is what makes this like a good movie as opposed to some other action movies.
Yeah, and with all of Bong Joon Ho's movies we talked about so far, like when someone gets hit,
oh yeah, you're
gonna feel it. So, and a lot of people get hit on this train. Let's talk about I kind of did say it was on the nose, but like I think for an action film it's not on the nose at all, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Again, like you said earlier, Dan, it's like the system's rigged and it's broken, so blow it up with drugs. But yeah, and like I just say this because I was having a conversation with some people that I watched it with, and they felt it was just like very like ham-fisted and on the nose. But I'm like, this is a movie about a train that goes around the world and it has everything on it from the world. Like I I think you need to realize that some film, not speaking to them directly, but like some films can have a political message that is broad and is just interesting to discuss in the setting of what it is. And this is like a spectacle action film that also has a message about global warming. And the last shot of this film is a polar bear looking directly at the camera, which, you know, that says a lot, you know, and it's just two little Eskimo people now that they just have like big coats on. Yeah, I mean, I think the message is important, obviously, and it's just cool that it is in like what could have been like just like a blockbuster action film, but due to like the Weinstein company and some stuff behind the scenes, like it wasn't able to be in as many theaters as possible. And basically with this review, what we're trying to say is like, we all implore you to watch this film. It was on Netflix until the end of April. So now you would have to pay to see it, but I'm sure it will be back on Netflix or some streaming service soon for free. Because it is a very fun movie, and it's a fun movie with some like sprinkles of like, hey, like, remember we gotta save the environment and stuff like that. So I do really like this film, and I'm happy you fellas did too.
You guys ready for the power rankings?
Oh yeah, it's power ranking time, baby.
Yeah.
Here we go. Insert the crazy music. Okay, so last time we had two movies to rank. We had The Host and we had Mother. Tyler and I both put Mother at number 1, and Jack, you had The Host at number 1. Let's go ahead and start with Jack. Jack, where do you rank Snowpiercer out of the 3 movies that we've seen so far here on the Bong Joon Ho rankings?
So we got 1, 2, 3. We're gonna start at 3. Number 3, I still have Mother there. Very good still. Doesn't mean I don't like it. Sure. Number 2, I got The Host, and number 1, I got Snowpiercer right now. It's in my top spot. It's in the top spot of my power rankings.
Jack Hubert.
The one I would most likely rewatch multiple times over.
Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. All right, Daniel, your rankings.
Ooh, okay. I will say, I'm going to go number 3, Snowpiercer. Number 2, The Host. Number 1, Mother.
Okay.
And on any given day, you could argue one over the other, but just for my personal taste, I think I like The Host a little bit more than Snowpiercer.
Yeah, for me, Snowpiercer has Octavia Spencer, so like I gotta keep coming back to
Can't beat it.
All right, for my ratings, and again, just because something's number 3 doesn't mean it's horrible or anything, because, you know, I really do like all of these films. I think I liked all of them on Letterboxd.
Follow us on Letterboxd.
Number 3 for me is The Host. Oh my God, we all have different rankings now. It only took 3 movies. Number 2 is Snowpiercer. And number 1 for me is still Mother. I think I like Snowpiercer a little more than The Host, because I think it just takes everything that's fun and good about like this small creature feature and then brings it up a level into this like crazy batshit insane American action movie that Bong Joon Ho directed.
Yeah.
And I just like I genuinely like how weird this movie is, and like how many things you can look at and be like, like wonder what like that's all about, and like how this connects to the wider like Snowpiercer universe. Like there's so much lore in this film, and I just think it's cool to see Bong Joon Ho tackle that, and I imagine they tackle that more in the TV series on Sci-Fi, but you know, maybe I will check it out one day. I don't know. Daveed Diggs is in it, Jennifer Connelly's in it, but imagine if like Kang-Ho was the main character of that film, or of that TV show, you know, and the movie.
I have one last thought on that before we start to wrap up here. If Kang-Ho was the main character, I think that there is something really interesting about the leadership quality thing that this movie is trying to the movie's trying to tell us that Chris Evans is not a leader, and it's just like I don't buy that. With Kang-Ho though, the fact that he wouldn't be able to speak English, or he would be able to speak just very broken English from time to time, the lack of ability, or the inability to communicate would be such an interesting thing for a leader of an action movie. The fact that he cannot totally articulate everything to the people in the train is like, would be beautiful. I just think that would be an interesting choice. And then eventually they can find those cool machines that like are language translators. But imagine if the first 35 minutes or so before they get to those machines, he's just like speaking kind of broken English and speaking Korean, and like not everyone can totally understand, but they believe in him so much that they follow him despite that language barrier. I think that that's so powerful.
Yeah. Final thoughts, either of you, on Snowpiercer? A lot of fun, very weird. Overall, it's really interesting for me to revisit this film because I watched this when I was like a lot younger, and this was my first time watching a Bong Joon Ho film, but I didn't even know like he would be such like a...
You didn't even know who Bong Joon Ho was.
No, I didn't know who he was.
Didn't even know what a film was.
I didn't know what a film was.
You didn't even know where Korea was.
Straight out the womb. What's Korea? Alex, I'll take foreign countries for 200. What is Korea? That was the joke.
That was really good.
But overall, I think it's so interesting to revisit it because like a lot of this stuff that I was like, oh my God, this is so good, has been done better, I think, in Mother and especially in Parasite. And it's just really fun to revisit this film because it's like, again, like this whole series, it's like we get to see one of the greatest filmmakers grow and change over the course of his career. And I don't think this is weird to say that this is the biggest leap of Bong Joon Ho's career.
Yeah, for sure.
And he 100% sticks to the landing. Like he has to struggle with a bigger budget, more heads watching the movie, a production company that has a language barrier with him and doesn't fully grasp why they chose him for this thing and why like his other films are so good, you know? But it is really cool, and he sticks to the landing, and again, he makes even better movies after this one. But this is definitely one of my favorites. Because it's the first, you know, your first time with Bong, you know, you want it to be kind of special. So I think Snowpiercer is special for me, is what I'm trying to say.
I'd never seen this movie before in my life before I watched
Hell
it.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I have 36 hours or so left on my rental on Amazon. Maybe I'll go watch it again. I don't know. It's a very good time. Once more, shout out to Octavia Spencer.
This movie is very good. Like I mentioned, the only reasons that I don't think that the movie's perfect is just because the Chris Evans thing that I talked about, and Ed Harris is super expository at the end. It kind of like, it's like 20 minutes of him just giving you all of the answers that you could have possibly hoped for. But like in a movie like this where there's so much lore, like you were talking about, Tyler, stuff like that's kind of fun. You know, it's, it is what it is. The movie is great for so many reasons, but the biggest reasons, the set design, the costuming, the makeup, all of the technical aspects of this movie, Tilda Swinton's teeth, all the technical aspects of this movie are so impressive. Everybody that worked on this movie, like from the ground floor up, should be really proud of themselves, because I think it's hard to make a movie like Star Wars. And in some ways, I think that they did. I think that they created a world that is believable and interesting and rewatchable, and you want to, I mean, you don't want to visit this place the same way you don't want to visit Tatooine, you know, because like it's terrible, but you do want to just like see, you're happy that in these 2 hours you can live in this space for a little while, because it's so unlike anything else that you've ever seen. And so I think every craftsperson on that movie deserves a big round of applause. They should have been awarded a bunch of Oscars. And on top of that, Bong Joon Ho is in full action form, doing something that is just, again, he's proving that he's a master of genre. No matter what that genre is, he's a master of it. He's a master filmmaker, and I love him. If he wants to come on the pod next time, just give us a call.
And you know the best part of this film?
What's that?
Chris Evans knows that babies taste the best. So next time we're going to be reviewing Okja, which I will be interested to rewatch. I've watched it, I think, twice, and that was a few years ago, but Okja is somehow even weirder than Snowpiercer. But our boy Steven Yeun is in it.
Big excite.
And our boy Jake Gyllenhaal.
Big excite.
So,
big excite.
Again, if you're watching along, please check out Okja next. It's a 2017 film, and it's Bong Joon Ho's basically second kind of American / Korean film. And I don't know. We'll discuss that, and I think that will be his last one. I think he's only going to be working in Korea from now on, but who knows? So this has been another Nothing Notable podcast. This is our Bong Joon Ho series, part 3. I've been Tyler.
I've been Daniel.
And I've been Jack.
And, subscribe, and all hail Wilfred. Wilford. Wilfred is a good
all hail
TV
Wilfred, the TV show on Netflix.
Could you imagine at the end of this movie when Chris Evans goes into the thing and it's Wilfred? It's a fucking dog.
He's like, I like Matt Damon movies.
He's just smoking a cigarette with Elijah Wood. Oh man.
Oh my god.
Nice.